Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a fascinating and, honestly, brilliantly dark microfable by the acclaimed writer Augusto Monterroso. It's called The Frog Who Wanted to Be a Real Frog. In literally just a few short paragraphs, Monterroso manages to pack in this profoundly deep analysis of the human, or, I guess, amphibian, condition. We're going to unpack the steep and sometimes fatal cost of seeking external validation instead of just trusting our own self-worth.
So let's kick things off with a simple yet pretty heavy question. How do you prove you are truly yourself? Take a second and really think about that. How do you actually measure your own authenticity? Do you define it by your own internal compass, or do you wait for somebody else to tell you that you're valid? Well, the protagonist in our explainer today is a frog who goes on a deeply relatable yet highly disturbing psychological journey to answer this exact question.
Phase 1 is the quest for authenticity. Our story starts with a really simple premise, but one that is just fraught with anxiety. There was once a frog who wasn't content just existing. She felt this constant, nagging pressure to prove her reality, to validate her very existence as a frog. She wanted, more than absolutely anything, to be a real frog, and she struggled every single day to make that happen.
To really understand her struggle, we have to look at what she was chasing: authenticity, the quality of being real or true. And for our frog, this wasn't just a passing whim. It was a deeply longed-for state. Monterroso makes it crystal clear that this was a daily, exhausting struggle. Imagine waking up every single morning and feeling like you literally have to earn the right to be exactly who you already are. The philosophical stakes of this tiny little fable, they are massive.
Moving into Phase 2, the mirror's reflection. To solve her existential crisis, she tries her very first strategy, which is an internal search to find her true self.
And it starts out so innocently, doesn't it? Monterroso writes first she bought a mirror, into which she gazed for hours hoping to see her longed-for authenticity. She's looking inward, examining herself, hoping that if she just looks hard enough at her own reflection, she'll finally see a real frog staring back. She's trying to self-validate through introspection.
But, this internal search takes a massive emotional toll over time. For hours, she gazes into that mirror. And over the days, she realizes a terrible flaw in her plan. Sometimes she thought she found her authenticity, and sometimes she didn't. Why? Because it depended entirely on her mood of that particular day or hour. Over the weeks, this unreliability just exhausts her. She grows tired of this fickle internal compass and eventually packs the mirror away in a trunk. Internal validation proved to be just way too draining, because it shifted with every passing emotion.
So she trades her flawed internal search for a dangerous new approach, seeking external validation. She actually comes to believe that the only way to be sure of her own worth is through the applause of others. She's trading a moody internal mirror for the harsh, unyielding light of public approval.
That brings us to Phase 3, the jury of public opinion. This is where our protagonist shifts her entire paradigm. She is no longer trying to convince herself that she's a real frog. Nope. She is now actively performing for the crowd.
She begins taking these escalating and honestly very relatable social actions just to get others to recognize her. She starts doing her hair. She starts dressing up. Monterroso even notes she'd actually start undressing when she had no other option, all just to see if others approve of her and recognize that she was a real frog. Does this sound familiar? It perfectly mirrors how we curate our own lives, our outfits, our social media profiles, constantly waiting to see if society will approve of us and tell us we're valid.
Phase 4, the physical transformation. Here's the thing about the need for validation. It is a hungry ghost. The jury of public opinion begins dictating far more than just her wardrobe. It starts demanding changes to her physical form.
She notices that what the crowd admired most about her was her body, especially her legs. So, what does she do? She leans completely into what the audience wants. She starts doing squats and jumps specifically to get better legs. And the result? She felt that everyone applauded her. That intoxicating sound of applause becomes her new mirror, but it requires her to physically mold herself to the crowd's ever-shifting desires.
Phase 5 is the ultimate sacrifice. Prepare yourselves, because this is where the dark, tragicomic climax of Monterroso's fable truly hits. The frog pushes herself harder and harder, willing to go to absolutely any length to get others to consider her a real frog.
Just think about this terrifying escalation. It started with introspection, looking in a mirror for internal worth, right? Then it moved to changing clothes for external approval. Then it pushed even further, into physical modification, doing squats for admiration. And finally, the grotesque conclusion. She even allowed her thighs to be ripped off for others to eat. The stakes compounded from a simple look in the mirror to a fatal self-sacrifice, all just to feed the insatiable appetite of the crowd.
Phase 6, the bitter irony. And that brings us to the bitter irony of our story's tragic conclusion. The frog finally gets exactly what she has been chasing this entire time. She gets the ultimate external validation, but at the absolute highest cost imaginable, her life. Listen to how Monterroso concludes this. As the others devoured them, she was still able to hear bitterly when they said, "Excellent frog, tastes just like chicken." She gave up everything. She sacrificed her own body. She allowed herself to be consumed just to be recognized as a real, excellent frog. And their ultimate compliment? Comparing her to a chicken. The biting irony here is masterful. No matter how much you sacrifice for the crowd, their validation is ultimately meaningless, absurd, and entirely out of your control.
So, I want to leave you with this lingering question. Have you put away your mirror in favor of the crowd's applause? Because, this fable isn't really just about a frog. It's a psychological lens focused right back on us. In your own pursuit of authenticity, are you looking inward, even when it's incredibly difficult and exhausting? Are you slowly sacrificing pieces of yourself just to hear the crowd clap? It is a heavy thought, but a crucial one. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep your mirrors out, for sure, no matter how moody the reflection might get.